Ellie, you ready to get started?
Yep, we are live. Go for it.
That's awesome. Well, welcome and thank you for attending the December 13th CTE committee meeting. My name is Mike DiGiacomo, and I'm the Executive Director for the Governor's Workforce Development Board and the CTE committee. We are joined today by CTE committee members, guest speakers, staff, along with members of the public. The meeting is being live streamed, and if you pre-registered online, you'll be able to post questions in the chat, and we will monitor and be able to get to them as required. We have established a CTE committee email account for the public to provide input, which the staff and committee members will monitor and review. Allie will put that email into the chat for people to take. The first CTE committee meeting was held October the 4th to introduce the CTE committee members and provide Pillar 3 Foundation and CTE committee responsibilities. You can visit our website at gwdb.maryland.gov for the previous recording and presentation. Looking forward, the January meeting will include a presentation from the State Superintendent of Schools, Mohammed Chaudhary. And we are working on the agenda for the February and March meetings. All the meeting dates are posted on our website. The agenda today will begin with opening remarks from CTE Committee Chair Myra Norton, followed by Allie Carter, who will give a brief refresher on the goals and responsibilities of a CTE committee and provide a brief update on the adopted AIB statewide comprehensive implementation plan related to Pillar 3. Then Bob Lehrman from the Urban Institute will be providing timelines and the path forward for completing the CTE committee plan due to the Accountability and Implementation Board by March 15th, 2023. Concluding with a presentation from Jeff Smith, Program Manager for Apprenticeship and Training at the Maryland Department of Labor, who will provide an overview of apprenticeships in Maryland. And with that, I'd now like to turn it over to our CTE Committee Chair, Myra Norton, for some opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. We're delighted to have you this morning. Good morning to my fellow committee members and to those of you in the public who've decided to join us today. I think Mike's done a great job of kind of overviewing what the plan is for this meeting. We thought it would be good to really have a deep dive on apprenticeships and understand the work that has been done to date and how we think about that here in the state currently. And then also to hear from our friends at the Urban Institute who are working diligently to gather research and data and help us develop the plan for the CTE committee. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Allie Carter, who's going to take us through an overview of Pillar 3 of the AIB and the CTE committee, both our responsibilities and where we'll be focused going forward. Allie?
Thank you, Myra. Hi, everybody. My name is Allie Carter, and I'm the Program Manager for the CTE committee. So let's start out with a quick recap, and this is going to be a fast, high-level overview, and I'm going to point you in the direction of where you can find more detail on this information. So this all started in 2016 when the General Assembly established the Commission on Innovation and Excellence in Education, which you've probably heard called the Kirwan Commission, named after Commission Chair Britt Kirwan. Its mission was to provide recommendations to create a system for world-class education for Maryland's public school students. And over 3 years, they studied global best practices in education, which led to recommendations that formed the basis of the legislation called the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. The blueprint was introduced in the 2020 legislative session and became law in 2021. Now, the blueprint is a transformation. It's aimed at supporting a child from pre-K through career. And as you can see on this slide, it's organized into 5 pillars: early childhood education, high quality and diverse teachers and leaders, college and career readiness, more resources for all students to succeed, and governance and accountability. The CTE committee meeting here today is going to focus primarily on Pillar 3, which is college and career readiness. Now, under the blueprint, students will be assessed on updated college and career readiness standards to ensure that they will be successful in a career or post-secondary pathway of their choice. The goal is for students to meet these CCR standards by the end of 10th grade, and there are supports in place for students who are not yet on track. Once a student meets those CCR standards, they will now have a variety of options for post-CCR pathways at no cost to the student. And these include entry-level college preparatory programs like International Baccalaureate and AP, dual enrollment, high school and an institution of higher education to earn college credits and even an associate's degree, and a robust set of CTE programs that are approved by the CTE committee that allow students to complete courses that lead to an industry recognized credential, which includes the high school level of a registered apprenticeship. On December 1st, the Accountability and Implementation Board, or AIB, released their statewide comprehensive implementation plan. They broke down Pillar 3 into 4 objectives that you can see here to guide our collective work in implementing the blueprint statewide. Much of the work of the CTE committee lives in Objective 4. So the AIB's final comprehensive implementation plan, after taking public comment and feedback, articulated 2 major outcomes of this objective. And in their words, the first quote, all middle school and high school students are provided with career counseling to learn about post-secondary and career options that align with their interests. And the second quote, the number of students enrolled in CTE programs and participating in high school level registered apprenticeships increases until 45% of high school students earn an industry recognized credential by fiscal year 31. It's also important to note that in 3.4.4C of the AIB plan, quote, the CTE committee shall develop a statewide framework for CTE that prepares students for employment in a diverse modern economy. And within this section of their plan, the AIB notes, quote, the framework shall identify CTE pathways aligned with the state workforce needs and prioritize apprenticeship opportunities as the preferred industry recognized credential to the extent practicable. You can read the entire AIB comprehensive implementation plan on their website. Now, the mission of the CTE committee is to build an integrated, globally competitive framework for providing CTE to Maryland students in public school, institutions of post-secondary education, and the workforce. So in order to achieve that, some of the committee's responsibilities include developing a statewide framework for CTE, developing comprehensive occupational skills standards, monitoring progress and setting annual goals toward that 45% benchmark, addressing operational issues, creating CTE expert review teams, and creating a CTE skills standard advisory committee. So now we know what our goal is. Where are we starting? The data here is found on the MSDE CTE data dashboard, and we're going to dive into this baseline data at our January meeting in a presentation from State Superintendent and CTE committee member, Mohammed Chowdhury. But here's kind of where we're starting as far as baseline data toward our goal. And currently, CTE programs are organized into career clusters with 122,519 students in CTE programs across 259 schools statewide. This information also can be found more broken down in detail on the MSDE website in their data dashboards as well. So now that the AIB has released their comprehensive implementation plan, the next benchmark in implementation is the CTE committee's CTE implementation plan, which is due on March 15th. And to support the creation of this plan, we welcome Bob Lerman and Basha Katz from the Urban Institute, as well as Ting Zhang from the University of Baltimore. And they are now going to walk us through their strategy for developing our CTE plan. So I pass it off to you, Bob.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much. We are happy to work with the CTE committee toward implementing this very ambitious blueprint, which we believe, if implemented effectively, can change the pattern of careers for Maryland young people. So let's go to the next slide. So here are the key actors in the CTE committee. And we'll now turn to the next slide. Lots of partners to coordinate. So we have a big challenge in doing that. So we've been tasked with helping to develop the plan to achieve this very ambitious goal that prioritizes registered youth apprenticeships to reach this level of 45% of high school seniors. And in laying out the case for this, I'd like to talk first about what are we talking about? What are these youth apprenticeships? Like all other apprenticeships, they're jobs, structured work-based learning under a qualified mentor, and involves written agreements between employers and apprentices. They're far more formal and far more extensive than standard internships. They involve registration with the state or federal Office of Apprenticeship, and they last at least a year, well beyond a year for most occupations. The idea is to achieve full occupational confidence, competence, and be certified as having such competence as a fully qualified member of a profession. Unlike pure CTE courses, a lot of the activity and learning is work-based. Work-based learning goes together with classroom instruction as apprentices apply what they learn. But in addition, from the point of view of both the apprentice and the employer, apprentices actually earn wages while they are learning, and they contribute to production, and that's what allows employers to gain some return on their investment. Apprenticeships are also a way of dealing with the skill mismatch, because it's employers that are driving the demand for apprenticeships. Next slide. So why are youth registered apprenticeships compelling? First, as I say, it's fundamentally a mode of learning that emphasizes learning by doing, applying concepts to real situations, real world situations. And that's what most of us do. And that's the way most of us learn. But for youth, apprenticeships have a lot of very good features. They foster engagement. They help promote the learning of academic and employability skills. That's increasingly important in a context where youth employment has declined a lot in the last few decades. Upon completion, apprentices gain a sense of pride and become part of a community of practice. They have incentives to do well in their classes. The adult mentors are watching what they learn. And unlike some critiques, what we find is apprentices retain most of what they learn for decades. Next slide, please. So young people, they learn what it takes to get good at something. And that's really important. They provide a sense of joining and contributing to a tradition, and learning in a setting in which a craft or discipline is actually practiced. Again, courses can only go so far in helping young people learn the actual practice, the speed, the interaction with others, with customers, with supervisors, and so on. And one good thing from the point of view of employers is that the adult mentors are sharing their knowledge with the youth, not only about the discipline itself, but also life skills. So I want to now turn it over, next slide, please. I want to turn it over to Batya Katz, who's going to talk a little bit about how we are thinking about the goal itself. Batya.
Thanks, Bob. And hi, everyone. I'm Basha Katz. I'm a research analyst here at Urban and working on this plan for Maryland. And so I want to talk a bit about clarifying what the goal means. And I actually saw a question about this in the chat. So I think kind of goes to show that the AIB calls for meeting 45% of high school students earning an industry recognized credential by the 2030 to 2031 school year. This is a very ambitious goal that could mean different things to different stakeholders. And there's been different language throughout different iterations of creating this plan. And so where the AIB has landed is 45% of high school students earning an industry recognized credential, which could mean there's a few different things that could make an industry recognized credential, such as a certificate program that's achieved through courses, or it could include an apprenticeship program. The AIB and the CTE committee have expressed a strong preference for the majority of that 45%, if possible, to be made up by a high school level of a registered apprenticeship. And so our team is looking to really clearly specify what those concepts mean. So what is the high school level of a registered apprenticeship? What is a registered apprenticeship? What is a youth apprenticeship? So these are different things that are sort of flying around. A registered apprenticeship specifically related to what Bob had been saying is an apprenticeship that has been approved by either the state or federal Department of Labor. And so we'll also discuss options for making these concepts concrete and measurable. So for example, 45% of high school students in the 2030 to 2031 school year, how many students are we actually talking about? What does that look like from district to district? What are the demographics of those students? Who is going to need to be connected with different employment options in order to achieve this? So there are a lot of kind of concepts that are sort of abstract. And so we're looking to kind of make them concrete and really ground them in data as we clarify the goal. And so there's a number of different ways that the goal can be met, but we want to really spell out what that looks like specifically for a registered apprenticeship, which we'd like to see as the main way of achieving this goal. So Ali, you can go to the next slide. And to help us kind of better understand the goal and where we need to go from the goal, we're also looking to understand the current status of occupational preparation in Maryland. So we want to see where career-focused education is today. And Ali showed some great slides that show kind of the basics of this, which is currently about 7% of Maryland is meeting this goal of an industry recognized credential or an apprenticeship program, mostly through a CTE program. So only, I think, less than 1% of Maryland high school students are doing an apprenticeship. So that's going to be a big jump from where we are now. Beyond the data that Ali provided that's really easily accessible on Maryland's website, we're also going to look at some other existing data on CTE programs and completers to better understand. So first of all, the percentage of CTE completers that are entering related careers. We want to know, like, how well are these programs actually working at preparing students for the career that they're eventually going to enter. We also want to see what is the extent of work-based learning and registered youth apprenticeship. So as Bob mentioned, a youth apprenticeship can kind of mean a lot of different things. Some may be registered, some may be apprenticeship adjacent programs that are still providing work-based learning. And so that's really important to learn about, because that can be a place that we could kind of build on if we wanted to kind of go from a program that's maybe unregistered, but is still providing work-based learning. You can kind of build on that and just take it that extra step to get it to where it needs to be a registered program. Similarly, we want to understand the percentage of high school students who currently work. Some of those might be, career focused programs. Some of them might just be, jobs to make money, which is, one way or the other, that's connecting students to employers. And so we kind of want to understand how prevalent is that currently. And then finally, we want to look at what are the nature of industry credentials, specifically those that may not be apprenticeship related. We want to understand how those are being awarded, who is getting them, and what are the main industries and occupations that we're finding, because this will help us understand kind of where what occupations and industries are really high growth, where do students already have connections, and that can help kind of make those concrete in order to achieve this goal by the 2030 to 2031 school year. And to get all of this information, we're going to be using data from the Maryland Longitudinal Data System Center, MLDS, MDSE tracking information from the Department of Education, RAPIDS, which is the Registered Apprenticeship Partners Information Database System. So that just tracks information about apprenticeships that are ongoing. And then, of course, the Maryland Office of Apprenticeship. And I'll pass it back to Bob to talk about the next step of the plan.
Okay, thanks, Batya. And now I'm just going to talk a little more about what could we go to the next slide? What our plan is for building out our recommendations to the committee. And this is going to include, first of all, learning from other youth apprenticeship approaches. What's been happening in the US and internationally that we can learn from as to how apprenticeships can work in Maryland, registered youth apprenticeships in Maryland. One program of special interest is the Wisconsin Youth Apprenticeship Program, in which there are now 6,400 apprentices, over 4,000 employers, guided by state skill standards, and has been going since the early 90s. Although a lot of these apprenticeships are not full registered apprenticeships, they do all provide skill standards and work-based learning. And we're going to look at other examples. And of course, Switzerland is the biggest goal that anyone's been there realizes that's the program that covers the most. It's the most robust. It's high quality. It covers about 70% of a youth cohort. So we'll learn from what they do as well, not only on the apprenticeship side, but also on the counseling side. Next slide.
Bob, can you just hold on just a moment? It looks like Secretary Fielder has his hand raised. Secretary?
Yes, thank you, Mike. I had several questions. I was kind of waiting to the end of the presentation to make sure I didn't duplicate. Question on whether you're gathering this data, will you be gathering the dual enrollment and credit and non-credit type of information that's out there? Any support funding from different scholarship programs, even though they're paid, for some of the operational costs? And then the fields to explore for potential apprenticeship needs, certainly the IT field, cyber, allied health, assisted living, there's tons of those kinds of things. So I haven't seen anything in these slides that details that, and I was curious about those things.
Yes, we are planning to look at what are the existing programs, what are the potential programs, not only in the private sector, but also in the public sector. I note that there just released 3 studies on potential jobs in the public sector. And not only where these openings are likely, but how to help employers organize their hiring, recruitment, and training so that these apprenticeships actually do materialize. But certainly we'll look at the industry mix. We hadn't expected to go too far into the dual enrollment, other than how they interact with occupation-based and career-based credentials, but we're willing to look at that as well. But not sure what you had in mind there, but we certainly will look at the industry distribution. It's really an occupational distribution, I should say, because apprenticeships really are occupation-based. If you think about the IT field, cyber, say, is used in all kinds of industries, not just a computer-based industry.
Thank you.
I want to quickly add it, and by the way, I'm Ting Zhang from Jacob Friend Institute. Definitely, we will look at the credit, non-credit. The data seems available to that. And also for the industry, yes, I believe the apprenticeship data has some occupation classification. And for industry, when we track the data with the workforce data, we will be able to link with industry. So that was in the plan. Although we cannot say the data will be perfect, but we will try our best.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have the Census Bureau provides, even on a county basis, hires in each industry in each quarter, in each Maryland county, and it also highlights how many hires of young people there are, not by industry, but so we'll be looking at that as well. Okay, to go on, after looking at the other examples of youth apprenticeship, we'll be looking at what are the industry recognized credentials beyond youth apprenticeship, which are industry credentials, and highlight those that might have a high potential for success. We aren't going to be able to do a fully elaborate study of all of these. That would require a separate study, but we are going to highlight some key credentials there. Next slide. So the next step will be to actually describe what are the key components of youth apprenticeship that will structure the research and the implementation plan. And we'll discuss what is the rationale for each component and why it's important. I have to say that the most critical step is to attract employers to start apprenticeships and to hire apprentices. We find very often that when we have enough apprenticeships at scale, that affects the overall system. It affects the counseling, it affects expectations, and it's critical for the ability to achieve this 45% or something close to it in work-based learning and youth apprenticeships. So how do we do that? And we'll be talking about that in a variety of ways to do it. We'll be talking about skill standards that's necessary for the on-the-job learning, how that links with the CTE courses. One of the great advantages of the high school level of the youth apprenticeship is that what's called the related instruction in apprenticeship will be already paid for by high school or dual enrollment courses, which takes off some of the burden on employers and employer costs. Then we'll be talking about the advising and counseling component. Key point, we'll be working with employers on registration, mentoring, hiring, and encouraging completion. And then what are the best systems for assessment? Assessing the programs themselves, assessing the apprentices, and how can these skill standards be kept in line with best practices. Next slide. To do all this, we're going to engage with a variety of stakeholders, with interviews with, first of all, with legislators, state staff, clarifying the goals, looking at employer participation with large and small employers, talking with intermediaries that have a track record of generating apprenticeships, at least one staffing firm that does that. And then looking at how these apprenticeships will interact with schools, with scheduling, a whole variety of issues that arise as you make the apprenticeships work well with school systems. And critical, of course, is to have these programs included in registered apprenticeship. And of course, there we're going to hear today from a representative of the Office of Apprenticeship, and we hope to coordinate closely with the Maryland Office of Apprenticeship. Next slide. Having done all of those activities, we're next going to try to help coordinate with the Workforce Board and the CTE committee. How do we draft this plan? What are ways of establishing timelines, goals by county? How do we achieve these? What's the role of intermediaries in stimulating employer offers? How does that need to be incentivized? What kind of budgeting might be required to do that? How it's going to be deployed using the CTE expert review teams, how the Skill Standards Advisory Committee will interact with this initiative, and a variety of operational issues for students that want to participate in apprenticeships. Next slide. We'll look at ways of funding these innovative programs. I think the key will be to have an ongoing source of funds, especially to ensure that enough apprenticeship slots are developed with employers. Because remember, you don't have an apprenticeship unless you have an employer. Some of these will be public and government positions that have careers. Most of them will be in the private sector. And finally, what kind of guidance on career counseling we'll be seeing to make sure that the middle and high school students are aware of these opportunities and how these opportunities can lead to rewarding careers. Next slide. Okay. So I'm open to questions if we want to go that route. Allie?
Is there anybody with any questions for Bob about the process or the plan? Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Badia. Thank you very much. I think we can now move on to Jeff Smith with the Apprenticeship and Training Program at the Maryland Department of Labor. Jeff, are you good to go?
Yes, sir, I am.
Awesome. Thank you.
First off, I'd like to thank everyone for giving us the opportunity to share some information about registered and youth apprenticeship and high school apprenticeship. We have had a lot of efforts over the past, since 2016, to try and grow and expand our registered apprenticeship system. And one of the key components of that is connecting individuals earlier to the system, ideally while they are still within high school in their junior and senior years. You can move to the next slide, please. We'll start with a brief review of what the registered apprenticeship system looks like. Registered apprenticeship is an earn and learn strategy that combines on-the-job training, sometimes referred to as on-the-job learning, with related classroom instruction. The intent behind that is literally in the on-the-job training, the apprentice is literally learning what to do on the job while they're in a particular occupation. Connecting that, you're blending that practical and theoretical aspects by then having in that related instruction forum the opportunity that they are literally learning why they do what they do when they are on the job. Our registered apprenticeship programs are sponsored voluntarily by a wide range of organizations. These can include individual employers operating a registered apprenticeship program exclusively for their own hiring and upskilling needs. It could include employer associations. It could include joint labor management organizations, or it could also include other workforce intermediaries. As one example of an intermediary, we have in Maryland 6 of Maryland's 12 community colleges that serve as registered apprenticeship sponsors. Our overall system has grown to exceed 12,000 registered apprentices as of this fall, which is a significant level of growth. As recently as 2016, we were around 7,200. Next slide, please. So a little bit more of a deep dive on those 2 basic components. When we're looking at what is apprenticeable, the position must meet some training criteria. The position should be of a highly technical nature with a significant amount of time needed to attain proficiency. That occupation can be in a traditional, and in our term purposes, we define traditional occupation as the building trade, since that historically has been where much of apprenticeship has been, but we have had an extended focus on growing into non-traditional occupations, such as information technology, healthcare, cybersecurity, manufacturing, transportation, logistics, and so forth. So within that basic framework, there are a couple different ways that on-the-job training can be delivered. It consists of at least 2,000 hours per calendar year of that on-the-job training. That one approach for that is that it is a measurement of time as the apprentices move through the program. However, we also have the competency-based approach, where apprentices' skill acquisition is measured by how well they acquire competency and how quickly they acquire competency in various progressively detailed competency areas. That on-the-job training will take place at the work site under the direction of highly skilled journey persons. For our purposes, when you hear the word journey person, what you should think of as someone who is already fully qualified within the occupation that the apprentice is apprenticing within. Therefore, that person has the knowledge to be able to transfer that knowledge to those apprentices. Concurrently, that related instruction will occur, and that related instruction is at minimum 144 hours of related instruction per calendar year of an apprenticeship. Apprenticeship programs can be as short as 1 year in duration to as long as 4 to 5 years. That length is really determined by the complexity of the occupation. That related instruction can be delivered by a community college. It could be delivered by an online learning management system. One example is Tooling U, which is used by the manufacturing industry and provides various competency areas related to skills within the manufacturing sector. It could come through correspondence courses, or it could be provided in-house by the employer and their own dedicated training staff. Next slide, please. So when we think about youth and apprenticeship, really, we're looking at opportunities to connect our high school students to the registered apprenticeship system. Ideally, there are ways that can mesh into their existing post-secondary educational opportunities. It can also connect directly to what they're learning in their high schools while they are there. Next slide, please. So for high school apprenticeship here in Maryland, we strongly encourage all of our registered apprenticeship programs to utilize the school to apprenticeship framework. This is a program within the registered apprenticeship system and is designed to allow high school youth ages 16 to 17 to enter a registered apprenticeship while they are still in high school and continue with that program after their high school graduation with full credit given for the high school portion. Youth becoming registered apprentices will receive the appropriate related instruction while they are in high school. Then they will also begin working part-time to accrue the on-the-job training hours as their schedules allow. The school to apprentice apprentices may receive related instruction directly from their high school or from a registered apprenticeship sponsor, as noted in that sponsor's standards of apprenticeship. All STA apprentices are properly registered with the Maryland Apprenticeship and Training Program. Upon the high school graduation, these youth will then continue right on as full-time registered apprentices. In other words, there is a seamless connection. They are already connected to the program. They are already working with an employer who participates in that program. The only thing that changes is they move from part-time while in school to full-time when they graduate. All hours of on-the-job training and related instruction accrued during high school are part of their required hours to complete the registered apprenticeship program. The benefit there being, this allows someone to relatively more quickly in the progression of their career path to gain that full completion of an apprenticeship program. Again, as I noted, Maryland Labor strongly encourages our apprenticeship sponsors to include this model within their respective programs, and numerous programs already incorporate this option. One clear example that I can present to you, the Prince George's County Public School System. They created a registered apprenticeship program for various occupations in the trades related to facilities maintenance. Actual juniors in Prince George's County Public Schools start into that program during their junior and senior years, again, as I noted, accruing part-time on-the-job training hours, which are paid according to the wage schedules going with the registered apprenticeship program, and they are getting curriculum from their CTE school program right in Prince George's County Schools that is connected to and accepted for that registered program. Upon their graduation, they immediately transition to full-time employment working in Prince George's County Public Schools facilities maintenance. And at that point, once they graduate, their related instruction will then be delivered through Prince George's County Community College. Next slide, please. The third model that we wanted to talk with you today is Maryland's Youth Apprenticeship System. This is referred to as the Apprenticeship Maryland program. This gives Maryland businesses the unique opportunity to train, influence, and shape our high school students into top performing employees by providing opportunities for Maryland's high school juniors and seniors. Some of these youth apprenticeship opportunities are also co-enrolled with the registered apprenticeship system using school to apprenticeship. Like the registered apprenticeship system, participants learn while they earn by not only obtaining a wage, but also academic and occupational skills, leading to both a high school diploma and a state skills certificate. Students selected to participate in the program may start that program in the summer or fall of the student's junior or senior year in high school, or in some cases, anytime during the school year, depending upon the scheduling model used by the local public school system. Youth apprentices must complete at least 450 hours of fair minimum wage or better paid supervised work-based training. They must also receive at least 1 year of classroom instruction relating to the student's eligible career track in high growth, high demand industries. They must also receive credit towards a high school diploma or a post-secondary credential or both for the work-based training and classroom instruction completed under this program. This program initiated during the 2016-17 school year, and since that time, a total of over 800 students have participated in that model. Next slide, please. This slide gives you a representation of what our youth apprenticeship system looks like presently. We now have a record number of youth apprentices within the system. That very first year, we had 11 youth apprentices. We are now at 445. And you will see the breakdown in an industry sector here, with the government sector being our largest, then followed by education, construction, manufacturing, and automotive and others, healthcare too. So, and we are always trying to bring in new employers to our youth apprenticeship system. And more importantly, we utilize the youth apprenticeship system as an on-ramp to introduce and connect employers to our registered apprenticeship system, the gold standard. We have been able to convert many youth apprenticeship employers who participated there first, who now either have started their own registered apprenticeship programs or have become participants in an existing group registered apprenticeship program. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation for the day, and I thank you very much for your interest, and I'm here if there are any questions later.
Thanks, Jeff. Are there any questions from the committee on youth apprenticeship, or anything that Bob Learman talked about, Badia talked about?
I have a question, if you don't mind.
That's great. Go for it.
Jeff, a great presentation. I know that there are these tax credits. Can you tell us a little bit more about the tax credits for employers and what you're seeing with regard to their use?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. The Maryland Apprenticeship Tax Credit was originated in 2017 as part of the More Jobs for Marylanders legislation. During the period of time that the original model for the tax credit was in place, we had over 800 individual apprentices that were supported through awards to their businesses. During the 2020 legislative session of the Maryland Apprenticeship Tax Credit was modified to have 2 tiers. Originally, the program was structured where when a business hired a new registered apprenticeship into a Maryland registered apprenticeship program, they would be eligible for a $1,000 tax credit for that new registered apprentice once that apprentice worked at least 7 months of the taxable year where the credit was claimed. During the 2020 session, noted two tiers were added. The top tier for registered apprenticeship, that was moved from a $1,000 tax credit to a $3,000 tax credit, again with the same caveat: once that new registered apprentice had worked 7 months of the tax year, then they would, in turn, their employer would be eligible to claim that $3,000 tax credit. An additional tier was added where youth apprenticeship individuals, when a business hires a Apprenticeship Maryland youth apprenticeship, that business could claim a $1,000 tax credit for the youth apprenticeship individual, again, provided once they worked 7 months of the taxable year. We literally just unveiled the new version with those 2 tiers during National Apprenticeship Week just a couple of weeks ago. We've gotten significant interest and we've been promoting the program to make sure all of our apprenticeship community and employers are aware of the new model for tax credits. And we hope they would be as successful and popular as they were under the first version.
Jeff, we have a question in the chat. How many youth are currently registered through the STA program? If you know.
What I can do is I'd be happy to pull that data for you and share it through you, Mike, and you could share it back to the committee and any concern.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
If there are no additional questions, I will pass it back to our chair, Myra.
Thanks, Mike, and thank you, Jeff. Fabulous. So if there are no further questions from any committee members, just put that out there one more time. Any other questions or comments? Then again, as Mike talked about at the beginning of the meeting today, here are the upcoming meetings: January 26th, February 16th, and March 7th. Feel free to connect directly with the committee via the email listed here and our YouTube channel listed here as well. So with that, could I have a motion from someone on the committee to adjourn the meeting today? Or we can stay on, as long as you want, but I do need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I need a
Gilbert.
second.
Second.
All in
Thank you.
favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, we are officially adjourned. Thank you all. We look forward to seeing you in January.